Former P&Ger Ed Rigaud is building a new firm, and he wants it to be his legacy. Rigaud is a man on a $300 million mission, and he's poised to make a big move with the creation of Legacy Acquisition. Rigaud moved to Cincinnati in 1965 to start his career with Procter & Gamble, retiring in 2001. In 1996, he became founding executive director at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. In November of last year, he completed an initial public offering for his new company, Legacy Acquisition Corporation.
We are looking to build a significant business, a branded business, in the order of $500 million to $1 billion in enterprise value. We would like to start with a very solid business that's performing today and take it to the next level, utilizing the value creation skills we learned at Procter & Gamble.
So, why does a retired successful businessman take on a new business venture at the age of 74? Business Courier reporter Steve Watkins sat down with Ed Rigaud and found the reason wasn't financial. Steve joins Business Watch producer Kelly Leon in the studio with more on Ed Rigaud's higher purpose. Steve and Kelly.
Steve, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Glad to do it.
It's a really interesting story. So to Peg's point, let's start with, why did Ed Rigaud start this business?
Well, there is a bigger picture than just financial, although that's a huge part of it. But he also wants this to be his people to be a role model for young African Americans, to see they can be entrepreneurs, they can do things on Wall Street, they can raise a lot of money, and they can be big players in the business world, not only locally but nationally. And so that's a big part of what he's trying to accomplish. I think that's part of why it's called Legacy. And in effect, this will be his legacy, I think. And he's gone through a lot of discrimination himself. He joined P&G in 1965, and it was a different world back then. He grew up in New Orleans. He applied to LSU and wasn't able to get in purely because he was black. Back then, LSU was still quite segregated. And he had trouble getting apartments in Cincinnati, he and his wife did, while they worked at P&G. He was very clear P&G greeted him with open arms, but he encountered a lot of racism, and he's trying to make this an example of how opportunities are available for African Americans.
And so let me be clear on how this works, because it sounds like, if I'm reading this right, investors are supporting him without knowing what the company is.
That's right. It is kind of amazing. He and his company were able to raise $300 million without any operations.
Wow.
So it's purely a bet on the people, and some of the investment people, the underwriters and investors told us that that's exactly what it is. They're betting on Ed and his team, their experience in running and operating consumer goods companies, and saying, hey, we believe in you guys, and we think you'll create value with whatever company you end up buying.
Wow, that really speaks to his credibility and the respect
Absolutely.
that he has in this community. So it's a great business story, no doubt, but what I really love too is that you also touched on some personal issues, and you talked a bit about it, the racism that he encountered. But you even talk about his wedding day when he, Ed and Carol Rigaud, were married in 1965. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was funny. He went into quite a bit of detail about this, and it's an amazing story.
We have a great picture here, too. This is the couple in 1965.
And that picture he sent to me within 5 minutes of when I asked him for it. And he told me the story. He got married in New Orleans like a couple days before he started at P&G here in Cincinnati. He got married, they went to their reception, then they flew up here right from the reception to move to Cincinnati.
On the wedding day?
On the wedding day. His boss at P&G picked them up at the airport on their wedding night and said, hey, I'll drive you around town and show you around. You haven't really gotten to see it. Carol hasn't even been to the city. And so he drove them around. There's a great story about what happened after that I'll let people read in the paper.
But little tease there.
It's a pretty cool story, and he was very willing to share it. And it was great that he had the picture, too. We're really glad to get that in the paper.
Yeah, a really nice story. I mean, really interesting business opportunity, but like I said, really nice personal story, and I hope people pick up the print edition and read the whole thing. So thanks for being here this morning, Steve.
Sure, thank you.
Back to you.
Ed Rigaud's given so much to this community. Thank you, Kelly and Steve.